20% market share in a business that started when you were riding a city bus to the office. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce you to my good friend, Nick McLean, who runs an amazing business in Wenatchee, Washington, a very small population, small region, and he's going to share with you how he's done it. And I think overcoming an excuse and a reason that we hear all the time, small market, we can only grow so much. And you're going to hear how he has stayed on an absolute growth trajectory, created freedom in his personal life at a super high level, increased profit at a very, very high level, but most importantly in that freedom, being able to do the things he's passionate about as far as mountain biking is concerned, but also more importantly, time with his family. Nick, welcome, brother. Good to have you here, man.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
Good. So let's jump in, man. I left out the other part too. I mean, so much freedom that this organization stays on a growth trajectory in all silos of the business. And we were just talking before we came on. Now coaching for me is one of my Cheplak select coaches, delivering 6-week buyer agent training, 6-week listing agent courses. And at the recording of this video and the audio that you may be catching on podcasts, we're going to be launching a 6-week onboarding, elite onboarding course that will be available when this is out there released in the public. So Nick, take us back to riding a city bus to work and all the way forward to 20% market share.
Yeah, well, you take me back to the early days. I didn't start out on a bus. I started out in a car.
Oh,
I wasn't selling any homes, so I couldn't afford the gas. But I could afford a bus pass. I could afford that bus pass, and I was driving a 1984 Subaru GL spray painted green that I bought for $100 from my father-in-law. And get this, prior to real estate, I was a 747 flight crew member pilot. So talk about a change in your identity. A change in your identity. I went from a 747 to a real estate agent driving a 1984, having to go to my father-in-law and ask him to buy it off of him for $100. And I couldn't afford the gas in that car. And it was so cold out, the window wouldn't go all the way up. So as you were going down the highway, you just freeze to death. But those are the humble beginnings. And those are the place I always go back to, John, too. Even as we grow and we grow and we grow, I always go back to those times because those are the times that we're most fond of as entrepreneurs and as leaders. We're most fond of those. And also those are the stories that I tell my clients today if I were meeting with clients. And that's what I tell my agents. I go, the journey you're on right now, those are the stories. Don't wait for the results to show up because they're not going to hire you for your awards. They're going to hire you for who you are right now and what journey you're on. And people want to ride along with you on that. We're scared of all these haters, but you know what? There's far more people that actually like you and love you and want to support you. And you just got to let them do it. And so, you take me back to that bus ride. I could take you back to all the people that helped me. Right.
Really good.
Yeah.
Well, that's, your future's in your past. I think the one thing I hear people do is they get amnesia. They forget that. And it's the ones that will constantly go back to that. It's the contrast that we need. So you got up and running in real estate. How many homes did you sell your first year?
I sold one.
One.
Yeah, I sold one home. I made $6,200. And I remember the home. I drive by that home occasionally. And it was a manufactured trailer home, and the lady needed help. She was elderly and she was moving out. She had some health problems, and so I was able to step in and get it. And my broker gave me that lead. Right, it wasn't even the lead I got. Market crash. That was 2008. The market crashed, totally tumbled on itself, and no excuses. But we had 0 sales in 6 months on our MLS, and you gotta, I'm the agent that's like your grandfather that went through the Depression. He's frugal as hell, he's cheap as hell. That's me, because I always go back to that recession time. But, there's part of that. The principle in that business is I also made more money than $6,200. I don't tell the full truth. I just leave some stuff out. And
Okay.
that is, I started hustling. What I started doing is I started sending letters to everybody that owned property over an acre, and I would help them subdivide it, and I would charge per hour. So I actually made another $20,000 charging per hour. So think about it. I was licensed for less than a year, charging $50 an hour for my real estate knowledge and services.
No way.
Yeah.
How did you ultimately get your business ramped up? When did you really say, okay, you know what, I can make a career out of residential real estate sales? What were you doing, and how did that trajectory go as an individual agent?
Yeah, I did the solo agent thing for 4 years. And what I found is I made really good income, but I had very little time. And you always run it. You get that crossroad, which is more important to you, time or money? You get to choose. I want both. Well, I wanted both too, but I definitely wanted time, because my personal life and my relationships were going to hell. They were non-existent. I don't even remember that year. I can take you back to 2012 to 2014. I couldn't tell you one thing that happened in my personal life, not one. You talk about amnesia. I honestly think I had amnesia for 2 years. It's like Men in Black gone. And, because you get up, you eat, sleep, and drink it. And that's what you got to do when you're hustling. But at the same time, there's a better way to do it. And so that was a choice that I made to grow an organization. And I joined a 747 airline, international cargo airline, to become a captain. So I always had that leadership. I was always drawn into leadership. I was always pulled to be a leader. It's something that I always aspired to become. And I still, to this day, that's the thing about leadership, is you never arrive, and you have to come to terms with that fact. You thought at some point someone's going to say, Nick, you're knighted, and the king or whoever's going to put the sword over your shoulders. That doesn't happen, people. It doesn't happen.
Right.
And in fact, when people tell me I'm a good leader, that's when I get a little nervous. It's like, I don't want to be told I'm not doing a good job if you're telling me how great I am. I really am not a great leader if you're always telling me that oh yeah, hey, how was that meeting? Nick, that was awesome. Great ideas. Oh no. That's a red flag for me, everybody. Is like, oh, Nick, that was a good idea. Oh no. I want your feedback. I want to know the truth. I want to know what you think. I want to know how you would solve these problems. So that's where I go with leadership too. But I wanted to go on that journey as leader. Because that takes me back to my when I was fighting fires in the wildland fire in the Wenatchee National Forest, and my squad leader got sick and had to go home, and they told me it was my turn to step up. And that euphoria, that's how scared shitless I was to step up. Like I wasn't ready, all that, but I had to. There was no turning back. And taking on that responsibility, that moment in my life when I was in Mazama with Winthrop, with they were helicoptering us into these Vietnam vets were helicoptering us into these fires, and I was in charge of 5 people, 5 souls, 5 real human beings. And man, I just remember not caring about myself anymore, like truly, for the first time ever, not worrying about me, but worrying about someone else and being in charge of somebody else, but not in charge of like, you do this, but like responsible for them. And I was like, man, that selfishness at the highest level of leadership was like just a drug that I just had to have more of. Like I was willing to, I was the one willing to go into the fire first just to see how hot it was. Not to prove anything, just be like, I don't want you guys to get hurt yet. Let me test it first. And so I was leading that way, and it was just so inspiring to me. And I only did it for a couple of days, then I went right into flight school. You never heard that story, John, but
Really,
that's what I love about leadership, is that part of it. So that's why I got hooked on growing an organization, just hooked on growing an organization. And it just happens to be real estate. So
where was your production at when you decided that certainly you had admin support, but where was your production at when you decided, okay, I need to bring on a buyer's agent or I think the listing assistant came later.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to go that
Talk
route,
about that big, because that's a crossroads. I could probably guarantee a bulk of people listening to this are those that are sitting in that spot right now. How do I move away from it?
yeah,
Sales into being a business operator.
yeah. The way I did it was I started a team, independent brokerage under the team model, meaning that we were going to specialize in core aspects of the transaction and the services, buyers and sellers. So we separated buyers and sellers, and I recruited 3 buyers agents, 3 buyer specialists right out of the gate, and 1 assistant. And that assistant did the administration role. It's an executive assistant, because when you're growing your business, you want to leverage your production first. So you leverage the hell out of your production. So start getting everything off your plate. And that's what my executive assistant did. Guess what? She failed. She didn't last, right? She didn't show into work. She didn't show up to work. I'm in the meeting with my 3 buyers agents, and their phones start blowing up. Same time. Bing, 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 bing. And I'm like, hey, put your phones away. And they're like, I see this deer in the headlight look. She texted all my agents and said she's thank you for their time, and she quit. She told me she was at the dentist, and she didn't send me that test. So that's the team meeting I had, right? So that's my executive assistant.
Wow.
But what she was doing was leveraging my time more than my production, so I could maintain my production. I was selling about 50 homes a year myself at the time.
Okay.
And then I went out and hired another executive assistant. She had been a broker, an agent herself for 7-8 years, had kids, was married. Her husband did well enough to support her. And now she wanted to get back into the workforce. So it had been 5-6 years. This is in 2000. This is 9 years ago, John, 9 years ago. She's now my managing broker. She's my designated broker. She runs my entire company when it comes to contracts, right? When it comes to liability, when it comes to compliance with the Department of Licensing. That was my hire 9 years ago. And I, at the time, everybody, I'm like 29 years old, receding hairline. I don't know anything about real estate. I'm 4 years in the business, and I hired her. Now look at her now. She basically run my compliance and my licensing, which is absolutely incredible. So you don't know who you're going to hire, and you invest in them. I look for aptitude and attitude, or aptitude, attitude, and appetite, right? So if you got a good attitude and you really want it and you can learn, aptitude is that learning part. I'm going to hire you. And you're undervalued in the marketplace. And when I'm done with you, which is never, when it comes to training and learning, you're
Right.
so valuable. You're the massive asset to the company. And I know this because when I got my job, my first airline job in Miami, Florida, on the Focus Air Cargo, I had 0 hours as a commercial airline pilot, 0 hours. And they put me through what it was called a apprenticeship program. And it was laid out for me. It was year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And you do these things and you're going to be a captain. And they ran me through psychological tests and aptitude tests, massive aptitude tests. So how fast can you make decisions? What's your cognitive awareness, or like your situational awareness, your spatial awareness, your ability to think. So, find out, get people who can think. That is key, man. Can you think? Can you make decisions? Can you think things through? Or do you just always need to be told what to do? Right. To grow the organization, you need people that can work autonomously, but also seek out resources. I like to say we have CRMs in our business. What CRM did you buy? I got Boomtown. I have Boomtown for 10 years, everybody. That's our lead management system, our client resource management. But at the same time, the number one CRM in my company is crew resource management, or my agents and my staff knowing all their available resources. Are you managing your resources? Are you tapping into your resources? Title, escrow, lenders, Google, resources. So before they come to me, for an answer, I want to know that they've looked into all of the available resources, who's on that team. But I'll take you back, John. And you interrupt and bring me back online anytime you want. But, I hired that assistant and she was a game changer. And that's what
let's go to that spot where you started bringing on buyer's agents.
Yeah.
What were you doing? Because the one thing with you and your peers is you guys are all in your own way marketers. And one of the things I've found too, in talking to all your pals, big team leaders, you guys still are the director of marketing. You can have a marketing director, but you guys are still the director of marketing. You've got your pulse on it. It's just the way it goes. Yeah. What were you doing at that point in time outside of marketing? But how was there enough business? Was it those 4 buyers agents getting the sphere of influence leads, sign leads you had built up, or had you gone into marketing and buying leads? What happened there?
Yeah, for sure. So you start buying leads, you start generating leads, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day I'm lead generating. And I was lead generating right before we jumped on this podcast call, right? That's why I needed extra 5 minutes, John, because you're always writing, you're always communicating to the audience and to the community and to your ideal clients. I mean, that's something, I don't know when you give that up. Did Elon Musk give that up yet? Right?
I heard, and whether it's him or his people through him, he didn't own Tesla Motors. A guy in Sacramento owned it. So he had an employee go and sit on his doorstep and keep bidding up until the guy would sell to him. He sold the name to Elon for $75,000.
Yeah. Like you're right. So, if I take you back to that early moments, I was lead generating. That was primary focus, is lead generation and promoting the business, promoting the brand, but also converting it. So I studied direct response marketing. Like I studied the hell out of direct response marketing. Dan Kennedy is one that people can look up, Frank Kern in the video world and digital world, all these other things. I studied the heck of it. I even went to the old school people, the Ogilvies and things like that. So, you got to study marketing and advertising in your real estate business, because we don't have inventory and we don't make things. So you're not going to study engineering. You're not going to study widgets. You're not going to study that stuff, right? Because you're not making any product unless you get into the construction world, right? So you need to study client acquisition process. How do I bring in the business? And you can buy them. And I still buy business 100%, right? It's hard. It's going to be a lot harder for me to create the next Zillow than just to align with Zillow and start paying them, right? That's, so you got to pick your spots there. So, I was doing a lot of Craigslist ads. I still do Craigslist ads. I still do direct response marketing. I know buyers want one thing and they want homes. They don't want agents. So I sell homes all day long, and I capture their information, and we go out there, we put them in the sales funnel, and we convert them. And so I gave up buyers immediately. It was a struggle. And it's funny to me today, coaching, we coach top people, North America, top elite productivity agents and teams and organizations. They're still working their sphere. It's like, Nick, what'd you do this week? Oh, well, I was showing property. You're showing property? You sell like hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate. Yeah, it's my sphere. I feel like obligated. You know what, people, you're a different person than who they met at the beginning. There's a disconnect at some level, John, where they know how successful you've been in your career, and yeah, they might feel honored you're working with them, but at the same time, they're kind of wondering, like, wait a second, shouldn't you be handing me off at some point? And so I handed
That's really good. I want to stop at that and make sure everyone heard that, because I've never heard anyone say that. So much of the conversations, how do I let go? How do I let go? Well, have you put your socks in the shoes of the consumer who's sitting there saying, Nick, I've watched your trajectory over the years. My goodness, what are you still doing here? They may not say it, but that's really, really good.
Yeah, they might be like, then it goes into leadership and business management and your systems and your staff. And do you trust your staff? Do you trust your other agents? And so that's where I go with it. I'm going, okay, I can't go. And I learned this from a friend of mine too. And he's a big entrepreneur, owns like five $5 million businesses. And he said, if someone can do it 80% as well as you, give it to them. Like without a doubt, if they can do it that close to you. And the fact of the matter is, at some point you are doing so many things that you're not doing it like you used to. You are less capable than you were 5 years ago, because you had more focus in that buyer process, more focus in the service process. And so that was an aha to me too, where I was getting feedback from past clients that my service sucked. Right. And so if I'm going to increase the goodwill and reputation of my company, I can't be the one ruining that reputation. So this is where I went to, John. I was like, I need other people that are able to increase the goodwill and reputation of my company. You ever see me at a party? I'm the worst person at the party. I am not the life of the party ever. So, hey, no problem. No problem. In real estate, you need to be able to network. Let me go find an agent that's really good at networking. That's not me. I'll find them. They'll increase the goodwill and reputation of the company, right? Let me find someone that's really good at development, really good with builders. You don't like working with builders? Big deal. Find an agent that likes working with builders that would be good at that. So that's kind of like the Henry Ford model, right? Or, Rockefellers figured that out a long time ago. Like, you don't need to know that. You just need to hire someone that knows that or is good at that. So, you go there. So I gave them the buyer leads, which saves you a ton of time. That is huge. You're no longer in the car. You're no longer searching, right? You're no longer doing so much stuff. So then I do the listing side. And I just hammered the listing side with my executive assistant. Next,
how much longer did you hold on? You had those 4 buyers agents, and you give them, certainly you were giving away your buyers, and you had leads coming in. How much longer did you hold on to the listings? For another couple of years?
Oh yeah, 6 years.
Really?
Okay. 6, 7 years. Yeah. Okay. 6 years. Yeah. And I tried escaping it, right? I tried delegating that.
Knowing what you know now, going back, is there anything you would have done different in looking at that? Because now it's beautiful, and we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But what were the mistakes that you made, if any, that you recognize today in trying to get out of there?
Oh, well, so I could train buyers agents to call and convert buyers into buyer appointments and do that. To get someone to do a listing presentation to my standard, to my level, and convert it at my level and maintain the commissions at my level and price it at my level. That was the difficult part. So having that system, that training process where I got it out of my head onto paper into a system. Like I broke it down so they could do it. That was the game changer. So what I would do is I started training my buyer specialists on my listing process. So I would train in my listing presentation. I would train in my listing scripts. I would do an AAR, after action review, on all my listing appointments and journal, and kind of go back and teach my agents what I did and how I overcame that objection and how I navigated that and how I priced that home and how I came up with that. Right. And I just started sharing, getting it out of my head and into a system. And, before, you're a little like, oh, I can't train my buyer's agents on how to get listings, then they're going to want to get listings. No, you got to cross train them, right? At some level. And so I started, and then you look and you feel and you see, okay, who's really into this? Who's really into listings? And who's showing the aptitude and the appetite to learn more? Who's coming up to me and saying, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about listings. And I want to go with you on an appointment and do this. And then not like, oh no, stay in your lane. No, come with me. And then that's my listing partner, right? That's my listing partner in grooming. That's my new leader, right? And in my organization, it's not better or worse to be a buyer's agent or listing. It's the same upside. This is why I tell them it's the same upside. You can make the same amount of money as a buyer specialist or a listing partner. It's just, what do you like to do? What you're passionate about? Where you fit, right? And so I started training them to figure out which ones really it was a good fit, because it was a calling for them. And they became my listing partners. And so that was about 6, 7 years ago. And in order to do that, in order to have a listing partner staff, a listing department that allows you to step away, right, without your profitability going to zip, because every sale you make goes 100% to profit.
Yeah, that's right, baby.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't grow the company in recruiting and people and all the other things you need to do if you're out there on a listing appointment. Right. When you're on a listing appointment, it's one-on-one. You're only moving the needle one transaction at a time. If I'm running a sales meeting, I'm moving the company potentially 50 transactions at a time because I got 50 agents right now, everybody. And someday there's gonna be 2,000 agents. So that 1 hour is one on many, and I can inspire them and train them to do more. But we'll get to that later. And that's the reason you got to understand you need to figure a way out. Right. And so you need a rock solid listing department. So I have these listing partners coming on that are eager to do it, which forces me to go bring on more agents, right? And grow that. And so then you have a listing department, which are listing, in my business, are listing coordinators. So I want to systematize and have a process for everything that's going to hold my listing partners back. So that's entering the listing into the MLS, that's marketing it, that's coordinating photos, that's getting keys, that's getting the disclosure forms, that's putting the sign in the ground, that's putting the lockbacks on the house, right? Totally leverage them so that they can go out there and focus on the listing process, the client acquisition, conversion, bring back the goods, hand off the goods, and let the listing coordinators do it. I call them the core. Your closing coordinators, your listing coordinators, your administrators, that's the core of the company. They are predictable. They are predictable. I love my agents. I love my team members. I love my agents, but they're working in an unpredictable, non-scheduled environment. And because of that, they are always going to be somewhat in reaction mode. And you need to come to the fact that in a non-scheduled environment, they're prone to more mistakes than someone that has a scheduled environment, right? So their agents are always going to be making mistakes. Don't get mad, and don't pretend like you didn't make a one dang mistake.
Yeah, that one.
So they're going to be making mistakes. Okay, so let's minimize the impact of those mistakes, right?
Yep.
And let's put them in positions where they really can't make a mistake. So get the paperwork, get the person, get the relationship, get the connections, bring it back, and then we execute. There's a lot of talk about the visionary and the integrators, right? Visionaries, but it's within your company too. Your agents are somewhat of a visionary. They're speaking one-on-one, the vision of the company and the service of the company, and then who's going to integrate it, right? The agents they're not great integrators.
No way.
Typically.
Really good.
Typically not good integrators. So you get a really core staff of integrators that absolutely love to integrate. They just tear through integration like you wouldn't believe. I call them 3-to-1 employees. And, if I think about my listing coordinators and my transaction coordinators, I mean, they can do so much. So much. My transaction coordinator. So I hired a listing coordinator. So if you guys want to know progression, I got an executive assistant, 3 buyers agents. That went to 7 buyers agents, right? And then I got a closing coordinator. So I had an executive assistant who also did listing coordinations, and then I did a transaction coordinator. Then when I hired another listing partner, I needed a listing coordinator. And so that's kind of how that progression goes. And what I find is it's about 4-to-1 in my business. If you separate these duties, 4 buyer specialists for every 1 listing partner.
Okay.
So 4-to-1 is what I look at. And because your buyer leads, you never give up on your buyer leads. It's kind of like, I see a lot of people do this in a seller's market, low inventory market, and that's going to change, but they're seeking listings, right? I'm done with buyers. There's no money in buyers.
Yeah.
Okay, I know. I get it. There's not a lot of money in buyers. It's tough. And you can lose a lot of money on buying leads and not converting them. But you got to see the buyers as sellers, right? You got to see those buyers as sellers, because every buyer you sell owns a home in your marketplace now. So play the long game on these buyer leads. Play the lifetime value of these leads. You got to play that out. So knowing what I know now, and I can transmit this to everybody else, where my number 1 source of listings for 2021, number 1 source of listings. And I'm spending 6 figures on radio, billboards, the whole gambit. It's not really my sphere. It's all of my buyer leads that I've purchased over the last 10 years.
Mhm.
I take all their emails, I put them into MailChimp, and I write valuable content to them.
Let's stop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking about automated. We're talking about personally writing the emails. Let's go back into this because I love talking. You've heard me say this, Nick. I'm an innovator, and 99% of the people say they're an innovator, they're an avoider, because you and I will ask them and say, really, tell me about your consistent video initiative plan that you have, what's going to your database. Tell me about your consistent email drip campaign that's not a bunch of scripts you bought. Let's dive right into this. How many people are in your database, Nick? 60,000-ish?
Yeah, I think I'm emailing to about 32,000 right
32.
now.
Yeah. And didn't you go on a 30-day run where you literally wrote the content value-based to the market? You sent an email to that database every single day for 30 days. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the way I think. I don't know. This is kind of the way you think. I know if I do something once, I might as well not do
it. No.
Right? Because the feedback, the odds are the percentages, right? If it's a 1% conversion rate, what are the odds I'm going to get positive feedback that's going to reinforce that behavior? Low. Almost nil, right? I have a 1 in 100 shot of getting positive reinforcement. Fuck that. So I'm going to do it so that I can make sure I feel that positive reinforcement. Doesn't make sense to a certain extent. Like, there's so many analogies there. So I'm going to go all in. It's beast mode. I go beast mode. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. We had Marshall and Liz, right? Go freaking all in. And I said, I think I even told you, like, I'm writing. And these were like, some of these were 7-8 year old emails. I mean, just dead emails, just.
And what did your top 3? You were doing this for a month straight. I remember this coaching call with you. Yeah. What did your top 3 agents come in and say to you after these emails had been going out?
I don't remember.
Oh, you said, John, my top 3 just came in and said, Nick, they're responding differently. They're reading your email. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. I started moving the consumer's thoughts, really. I mean, I was really telling them what to think and feel next. I was their pulse of the marketplace. And so I'll get this, let me break this down a little bit more for everybody, and hopefully it'll inspire them to do it. Number one, I wanted to pressure test the unsubscribes, right? So I want to minimize unsubscribes. And you get scared that you're going to over email them or overdo it, right? If it's relevant and it feels and it's genuine, like I wrote every one of them. It wasn't no canned, constant contact template. What's your template you're using? No, get away from that template. Here and now, right? Like I call it the hostage. It's like when you have a hostage, well, I don't think you should ever have a hostage, but if you did, you have them hold up the newspaper so you can see the date. So you can tell they're still alive, right? And so my emails, I always like to tell them something like, here's what's going on today. I was on the bus, I was, talking to my agents yesterday, whatever, right? And none of this happy Monday stuff and this, like, Christmas card BS, something genuine. And I just gave them real content and they didn't unsubscribe. They didn't. It was wild. And then my agent started coming up to me and saying, Nick, keep sending those emails. Like they're talking, they're asking me questions about taxes now because I just wrote one on taxes. They started asking me about home inspections and how that works because of your email. And so that happens. Now, here's the cool thing about it is my web traffic. So my website traffic went skyrocketed. I went from 10,000 visitors a month to 30,000 a month because I started getting them to go back to the website. So I didn't tell them, hey, do you want to buy a home? Do you want to sell a home? None of that conversion language. It was just like, hey, if you're curious, go back and start searching again. And I learned that from Zillow. Zillow, they just want daily active users, right? That's the leading measure. Get your people to go back to your website more often. The more often they do it, the better they're going to do it. I owned a IDX company, a tech company for 4 years, and I learned that. I learned that the hard way. That's why I use Zillow, because building tech's hard, man. That's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, I owned a real estate software company, and it was kind of like, how do we solve for getting them to come back to the website for our agents, And so I was on that mission to get people to come back to the websites. Our showing requests went out through the roof. Our information requests went through the roof, right? So all these measurements that you really want, that you're going to go out and pay for, you're going to pay Zillow a ton of money for a phone call, right? You can get it from what the people you already have. And I've been doing that consistently for 3 years now. And I probably write to them 3 to 4 times a week now. So I've backed off a little bit. But guess what? That content's beautiful stuff for social media posts.
The repurposing, and much of it's evergreen too. I mean, although, yeah, you want to be in current space and time, but at later dates, you can make some tweaks, and it's just the repurposing, multi-channel. I wanted to hit on that one, because I'll get people, I don't want to email more than twice a month. And I'm like, you're ridiculous, man. Yeah. You're just missing it, because you're an innovator. You're doing some new tricky way, or you've got this, it's like putting people on another saved search with these scripted responders that people have. It's like you're just making them dizzy. Whereas you're coming with relevancy. This, because I think it's one of the things we're both really interested and passionate about is the power of words. Right. And newsjacking. I mean, it's the simplest thing in the world. That's all the news does. News grabs the news, jacks it, and creates their own news. Yeah. And guess what? They've got the eyeballs. They're in the eyeballs game.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, it's simple. And
this bleeds into how you do all the other things. Like you say, how you do one thing is how you do all things. And so, to become a better leader, I knew I had to become a better writer. Right. Because even, my top sales meeting, I'll get 99%, 95%, but someone's sick, someone's not there.
Sure.
Right. And so I like to follow up meetings with something in writing. I might prep or pre-frame the meeting with something. So I'll jump on Slack or a private Facebook group or company email, and I'll write something. This is internal dialogue coming from the leader and the visionary and the mission and the purpose and what we need to be going at tactically today, right? So it depends on what I'm talking about. Am I talking big picture, small picture, tactical today, right? And then I do the meeting, and then I might follow up the meeting with something in writing. You got to be writing to your people all the time. They want to hear from you, right? I'm not talking to-do lists. I'm just talking little nudges. I think about nudges. I just want a little nudge. I'm just nudging people. And I can nudge people through a one message. And I do it pretty much every morning. Because, we talk about, my goal at some point was to be off by 10 a.m. So how do I get out by 10 a.m.? And I needed to nudge everybody by 10 a.m. But I didn't have enough time to get on the horn with everybody all the time, right? I'm not saying don't do one-on-ones with people, but I don't do one-on-ones with people. Right. I don't do one-on-ones with people. I used to do one-on-ones with people. Oh man, that was brutal. Thanks to you, I stopped doing one-on-ones. There's better ways to do it. And we teach how to do it. We teach and train and coach how to get out of one-on-ones. But I message them and I write to them. And I also have places where they can go back and get the information, they know what's expected of them.
Clarity
in writing.
Communicating with clarity consistently. So now you've created, you've got a situation now where, I don't know, I think your workday's done by 11 a.m. and you're on a growth trajectory. Yeah. Certainly we've changed that with another business silo because of the coaching that you're doing in addition while your business is operating. And as you and your good pal Sanit talking about, coaching's made you guys even be better operators, because it's like, whoa, it's like the teacher's the student. Was when you looked at where you were as far as still, okay, great. Now you're really using leverage to grow the business. and certainly get back more time so you could be in closest to the dollar activities to grow a business, right? It was like charisma creates sales, and substance as a leader grows a business. Was recruiting your ultimate freedom multiplier that moved you from the time that you were applying to more freedom right now? And was it, if so, were you the person that owned that until you got to the point where you had all this time now and still growing?
Yeah. When I met you 4 years ago, at the time, time of this podcast 4 years ago, I had 8 agents. I think I had 8 agents, and I had been up to maybe 14, right? My quick story, my top agent was licensed, sold 44 homes that year. His girlfriend was my CPA. They decided,
remember that call.
they decided to open a real estate company. My CPA opened a real estate company, and her boyfriend was my top agent. They walked out the door.
What were you in the 200s transaction count?
Yeah,
then?
probably maybe up to 300, 350.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but that's a big percentage of your business.
Yeah, big, huge. And all my intel and trust and pain and suffering, all this. Okay, so then they
trust and pain and suffering.
Yeah, and then I lost a couple other people for other reasons,
Sure.
health, financial, moving out of town. They don't always leave you for another company. You're going to lose people for reasons you can't even fathom. Life happens, right? Not everyone stays in real estate until they're 85 years old, everybody. It's not going to happen, right? So anyways, recruiting for sure. What happens is I started growing the company, and I embraced growth at a big level. So get away from the Navy SEALs and the high per agent productivity, which you still want to move that needle, right? You still want to invest in your people, but you can't expect your growth to be out of, water out of a stone, right? You can't just constantly, because they don't want to be you. This is what I had to learn. It's like, okay, oh, you did 30 last year. Let's make it 50, because that's what I would do.
I remember that call, John, because you're always wanting feedback. John, what's my blind spot? And it was either 2 or 3 years ago. I says, Nick, they don't want to be you. They don't think like you, and they're not going to act like you. And you're like, oh my. Yeah. But anyways, I want to just point that out.
So, in fact, what I was doing is I was forcing them out by pressuring them into
do more. I'm profiting from you. You're a good contributor to the culture, but do more, right?
Yeah, you're not living up to my standards ever. And I just keep moving the goalpost every day, right? And finally, and then I started listening, and I could hear, I'm happy where I'm. I like this. I like where I'm at. I just want to maintain this. And it's like, great. How do I support that? And so what growth did, I started recruiting, and then we went, 20 agents, 25 agents, 30 agents, now over 50 agents, Q1 of 2022. What it does for you is it not only allows you to grow your company and your sales and all that, that's great, and freedom. It gives you a safety of margin that you won't have to go back into your business and be part of your business in terms of like the salesperson. Because that's what used to happen to me. I'd leave as a listing partner, right? And I get sucked right back in because my profit would drop, right? Or you got 2 listing partners and one of them leaves you. Guess who's stepping into that role today? This guy. So I needed a safety of margin. And so the analogy I'd give you is, I think Charlie Munger, it could be a Charlie Munger quote, Warren Buffett's partner. And you want a safety margin so that you never interrupt compounding interest. Never interrupt it, right? You don't want to interrupt that stuff. So don't interrupt your recruiting. Don't interrupt your growth, because you need that safety. So you're not the one getting sucked back into it. And right now in the time and place, sales are good, prices are good. You might not have enough people if prices go the other way. You might not have your safety of margin. So I think about safety of margin there, and it's allowed me to have a good run where I didn't have to go back in. which allowed me to really grow the company in so many different ways, open a property management division, coach, do all the other things, could be a competitive mountain bike rider, hire a top tier coach there so I can compete nationally there. So that's what
Well,
recruiting
those are the personal. That's an interesting thing too to point out is, I don't know, it was 3 years. Has it been about 3 years now? 3 years ago, you said, John, I want to perform at an optimum level in my nutrition and my exercise and all these things so that I can show up better at home, show up better as a dad, a husband. And it wasn't like, hey, my life is going off the cliff. That's the interesting thing. Life was good, but you were talking about excellence and went from a guy that was on a beach cruiser. You posted, here's the bike that I had been on, a beach cruiser. That was the extent of my exercise. And then you're in a short time frame, and I want people to pay attention to this, and it's the common theme of all of our friends. You made a personal decision. You'd always been into personal development, but taking that personal development as a 360 human being, and you ended up on a mountain bike in national championships or national level races. And interesting to note, your business grew and your free time increased. I mean, it's pretty interesting how that goes. Let me ask you this, and somewhat rhetorical, but because we know each other really well. The recruiting took place, but who has owned the training and the skill building of your people?
Yeah, that's me.
And for how long has that been? How many training sessions would you say, if you're just grabbing it and it can saying that, like, because right now your days, what, end-ish 11, sure, you're a visionary, you're out, but you've got the freedom, it's operating well, it's growing, but training is still part of it. But how many training sessions have you delivered to your agents, would you say, over the years?
Well, there were many, many years I did 5 days a week, 45 minutes. We're doing 3 days a week now, and I've done it for years. And I own that. I absolutely own it. Now, here's the cool thing about it is, you don't want to overtrain your people, right? Obviously, you don't want to role play them to death. They won't show up. So you got your feedback is your attendance, and your feedback's your engagement, and your feedback is are they implementing, right? We do need to repeat ourselves a lot. But I look at the sales meeting too as sometimes it's inspirational. Sometimes it's motivational. Sometimes it's training. I use that hour. It's one on many, so where I can move the organization. How do I want to move them today? Where do we need to go? Sometimes I need their feedback. It's a training about, hey, you're problem solving. You're the boots on the ground. You need to tell the leader what's going on out there. I'm not going on appointments anymore, right? So for me to make good decisions, I need to hear from you guys. And that's what we're talking about today. Right. So here's a couple examples. So it's not all training, everybody. It's not like, let's practice this script and do this. You gotta really bring it. And so that's
you stay the freedom and I want to tie these together so people see, because, okay, great. Because we all, our good pal, Dan, we get in front of people and say, what do you want more of? You can only pick one, time or money. Time. Everyone's saying time. And so I think that there's a few things here. The recruiting consistently and never stopping. It's not like you just recruit, and then owning that training. But notice this though, you've stayed consistent in it, owned it, right? And that alone, because what training does too is it culturizes people. That's what people need to understand, is it culturizes, you're weaving principles. And I want people to hear it's, what you did is you listened to the feedback. There were probably times where you pivot. I remember when I was a branch manager in 98, give me your training schedule for next month. I said, I'm not giving it to you. What do you mean? I'll give you the time slots it is, but you want to know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pivot on the pulse of my people, right, Nick? I mean,
100%. I've never had a schedule like in terms of, on Monday, we're having this lender come in to talk
ridiculous.
About, no. Just like
that's the key piece is being fluid in it. Meet people where they're at.
Oh, 100%. It's just like writing emails to your database. Come on, people. You can't plan out the email for next November. Give me your 365 email 33 touch system. That's not going to work. Like and the same thing's not going to work with your agents, man. Things change, inventory changes, challenges change, appraisals aren't coming in on time, all this stuff. And I need other people to teach, not me. So I'm just a facilitator. I learned this from you, John. I'm running the sales meeting, but guess who's not talking as much as he should? Me. I need to learn how to talk less at the meeting and get them to talk. Okay, tell me what's going on. Hey, anybody see this challenge? You're right. Who's experiencing this challenge? I heard this the other day, right? My leadership, my managing broker and my sales manager and my ISA department and my agents, and they're feeding me ideas. Hey, I'm hearing these challenges, right?
You watched it, Nick. You've been on the stage a number of times for 3 years now at my events. My events are a 2-day sales meeting. My Cheplak Lives, I facilitate, pick my spots, and I put the brilliance like you and your peers on the stage for 2 days. And then, you may piggyback on something or ask someone else, hey, you did that. I mean, it's pure facilitation.
I don't know. I had an agent 14 years at another company, 14-year experienced agent, recruited a 14-year experienced agent. She went from a 70-30 split to a 30-70 split. Right. That's a whole nother conversation, right?
Yeah.
Well, why would someone do that?
You posted about that today, about the money thing on
the money. Yeah. It's not about money, people. She 1 week of sales meetings. Yeah, I don't even think we should call them training. They're just meeting. They're just great cultural, She hugged me and she cried. She said, in 15 years, no one's ever given me this. It was a gift to her. Right. And that was,
you talk about that gift in your, I think it's your listing, your 6-week listing course.
Yes.
And with the buyer courses too, that's part of your process.
It is, reciprocity, right? We know reciprocity, right? Okay. As a leader, you need to be giving. Well, how can you, what can you give? Experience, knowledge, training, your time, right? Well, I can't give them one-on-one time, but I can give them 1-on-50 time. You think this helps recruiting a little bit, knowing that I'm going to be the one mentoring them and training them and giving them direction? And then I have a power of the group that's going to support them if they have any questions. Yeah. Oh, it's like game over, right? There's agents out there, they try to get a hold of their broker. They can't get a hold of their broker on a Saturday because they're golfing or whatever. And they're like, I don't even know what they do, right? I'm not the one answering the questions because I have agents that can answer the questions for them. So it doesn't have to be so many team leaders out there. They're scared to hire because they think it's going to take away from their time. But there's ways to set up the system that it controls itself. The culture where it improves on itself, right? An open system that constantly improves without you having to improve it. That's like computer learning, right? It can happen. I like to think of everybody as, human beings that can adapt and learn and grow. And that's why I look at the aptitude. But yeah, the sales meeting is game time. And, if your sales attendance is going down, I don't require them either. It's not required. That if I required it, how do I know if I'm doing a good job?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So good.
How do I know? It'd be too tough for me to know. So guess what? It's voluntary. You can come or you cannot. Is it an expectation? 100%, because you're a learner and a grower, and that's why you hired it. People want to fit in and they want to be around other people. They don't want to be the one not knowing or learning what someone else just learned, right? So that's
on you to deliver, right? Yeah, is you delivering. Third piece. Let me go to this third piece, because you and I, we're going to do this again for sure. I mean, we're so deep we can go, and but I want to go to this third piece too, because there's so many different elements to it. But it was like that. Okay, how you got out of the business, if you will, exiting from being in production to being a leader. And then it was that, then came the recruiting part. Okay. And then the training part of it, but a real critical piece that you're going to be delivering over a 6-week time frame is the rock solid onboarding. Would it be fair to say, over your years in discovery, because the one thing you've always been, you want feedback, you're the first to say where I've fallen down, has crystallizing your onboarding to the level it is today, without that part, would everything else just fall apart for you?
Yeah, it would. The 90-day onboarding that we bring people on, culturalize them into the company, right? So that they are crystal clear on our standards, our expectations, and our process is so important. And I have everyone go through whether or not they're 0 years in experience or 20 years in experience. And to me, it's how do I get them into orbit so that they're with everyone else? It's just getting them to up to speed on everything we do. And I still own the onboarding process. And we do 8 a.m. to 8:45, 4 days a week. And
So watch this real quickly. What I want people to hear, you're still, most would think, oh my gosh, he's in the weeds. He's training, he's recruiting, he's onboarding and owning those. You should give them away. But wait a minute, they're so crisp. Wow, you've heard there's facilitation, it's done by a group. They're so crisp. He's going into the highest impact roles and delivering at a super, super high level, which creates freedom.
It does.
So I just want to point that out.
It does. And you go, and it's not like I don't delegate. So, at this point, we do onboarding 4 days a week for 3 months. Okay. Seems overkill. Okay. All right. Seems like overkill. I don't know, Nick. Seems like a waste of time. I bet you the people, it's funny. It's like there's a disconnect a little bit too. Go back to disconnect. It's like, okay, so you're an elite organization. You're going to help me become a better agent and grow and double my business, triple my business. But you're going to only onboard me for 14 days.
That's a good point.
And it's like day one. And they come in for day one, you're not ready, you're not prepared, or you hand them off to somebody else. Law of primacy, everybody. That first day, the first day matters big time. That first week matters big time.
I remember seeing the eyeballs out. I had a glass office in 98 and I recruited and I was still learning and just, I could out prospect all of my, lack of competency as a leader. So I was always safe there. But I remember like Monday would come and there'd be these 6 new agents I'd hired just looking, I'm like, oh, what do I do now? I mean, I learned real quick about onboarding then.
They need to belong, they need to fit in, they need to be welcomed, and they need to know that they're in the right place. And so that's what the onboarding process does for you. And so what does that do? Do you think that increases your retention rate? Yeah. If they show up week 1, week 2, or even week 3, it just falls off a cliff, right? Dude, like you were all there and then you're gone. Do you think human beings have abandonment issues? I don't know. I study human behavior psychology like you, John. I just observed, like, you think anyone had ever been abandoned before? Well, you just did that to them. So what's your ongoing thing?
Well, and then the flip side of that, too, Nick, is you really don't have to fire people. Because in those first 90 days, they can be, yes, we've seen that outlier, but those first 90 days, first 30, really, I mean, you can really see, but in those first 90, they're the make or break. And so when we start seeing someone not showing up, it's like, hey, this may not work out because this is the blueprint. And so it makes it really, really easy.
And so my onboarding is not a lot of lift and haul. It's in and out. And I can go through it with you, John, like day 1, day 2, day 3. And it's like, what do I talk about? Okay, well, I know what I'm going at. I know the building blocks. I know the foundation. I know where I need to go, what foundational pieces I go for. I'm building the foundation for growth and learning, And then they go into they're part of the system. Or the organization would be a better way to state that, right? And that gives me a predictable way of projecting revenues, right? Because I have a predictable onboarding process, I can predict productivity. I can predict throughput or output. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah.
So 100%. All I say I want to make another $1 million. Now I know how many people I need to onboard. Right now I know, right? And I know their success rate. I know their retention rate. I know how long they're going to be with the company. right? The reason people join you is the reason they leave you, as you say, John. Okay. The way they join you is the way they're going to leave you.
100%.
So if they join you and they're all alone and they show up at a desk and no one's there to help them, when they leave you, it's going to be like, see you later. They won't even tell you they left. They just walk out the door. Right. And so if you bring them on with a welcoming party, they're going to feel like when they leave you, they're going to leave you with more respect. I've seen this happen too. It's like, Nick, I honor you. I trust you. I love you. And I love everything you've done. I'm going this direction. Right. And it's like, okay, I'd rather have someone leave me that way. And then I can do a proper exit interview. And guess what happens? They end up coming back. But at least they left me the right way, and I allowed them to leave me the right way. And I do think it starts with the onboarding process. I bring on my leadership now. So this is where it gets really cool is now my managing broker and my sales director and my director of ISAs will do like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So now I'm only doing Tuesdays. So now
You're holding the context of that thing though.
Yeah. So now that I have the framework and the onboarding dialed in, now I can train people on how to train, right? Train people how to train, and then they know what to train. And so I can go, okay, Monday, I'm hanging out with my daughter in the morning. Tim's doing contract training. Cortland's doing CRM training on Wednesday for the new onboarding class. And I always bring them on in classes too. I bring on, don't do one-on-one onboardings, do 5-on-1s, 10-on-1s, 20-on-1s. You got to bring them up in stacks. I have right now, as we speak, I have 4 people licensed, not on my team, not in the company. They have to wait. They have to wait. It's so funny because we learn these lessons where it's like, oh, you just passed your test? Okay, see you tomorrow. Well, you sign their license and they're like, okay, here's a desk. It's like, no. We have a class starting on January 4th.
Just like a job. It's just like a job. Jobs don't say, oh, okay, great, see you tomorrow. No, they'll say, okay, we'll see you this date or that date. I mean, it's simple stuff.
It is. And then, oh man, it's just game changers though. It's game changers that it's funny. You'll wonder why you never did it that way before.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Nick, as I mentioned, we could go on and on. We'll continue to. We'll probably do a few of these in the future. What I want to let everyone know, from a coaching standpoint, Nick is one of my Cheplak Select coaches, and a matter of fact, I saw one of the people he's coaching went to 300 million in 2021, an increase of 100 million this year. Nick has a 6-week ultimate buyer agent workshop that we have recorded. If you're interested in that, a 6-week ultimate listing agent workshop with a manual that goes with that. And here we go with the recording of this. I'm going to get this thing out so that hopefully if some of y'all that are watching and or listening and you really want to refine your onboarding, we'll get this thing released here. So if you're hearing right now, hey, you can jump on it, because late January 2022, we're going to launch a 6-week elite onboarding workshop to take y'all deeper. So Nick, appreciate you, brother. Great way to spend my New Year's Eve with you, recording this for all the folks, and our ability to do what we do best, and that's contribute, man. Thanks a bunch, bud.
Thank you.